Anytime you ready.
Oh, the clicker, yeah, I might want that. Art has no single form, no definition. It exists purely in the mind of the artist and the audience. However, if we can pinpoint one commonality between all art, it would be that art expresses meaning, and meaning is what makes art so special. Katerina Gregos explains in her TED Talk that art allows for something that cannot be defined. Therefore, one can never predict the ways in which it will affect people, change people's minds, or influence their subsequent behavior. As such, it is a subtle power that can change the world one perception at a time.
Chelsea Schuler, an art instructor that explains that art translates ideas into symbols, and art also gives the imagination free rein, allowing you to experience the surrounding world in different ways and then record how you feel without relying on words.
We can experience art in many different forms, ranging from paintings and technological innovations to music. However, in recent years, we have seen a shift from the production of art for beauty to the production of art for money. Thus, we are forced to answer the question, how does the transformation of art into a commodity affect sociocultural factors and the perceived authenticity of the art itself?
Before we can answer this controversial question, we must first understand the events that have led us to the problem that we're seeing today by diving into a brief overview of art history. Next, we will look at the monetary implications of this transition, and finally, look to its effects on society and culture.
Now, looking to the history of art, we see that the first piece of artwork dates back to the first phase of human existence, during the Paleolithic Age, also known as the Old Stone Age. As explained by Essentials Humanity, a website that specializes in the history of world art, Paleolithic art was not created for aesthetic experiences. However, like many of the world's traditional art, Stone Age sculptures were thought to have supernatural effects. However, many stone artists disregarded this perspective and continued to specialize in visual art and simple paintings.
As basic cave art and sculptures evolved into a whole new art form, religious ideas and beliefs culminated in the Middle Ages. This period lasted from the fall of the Roman Empire to the start of the Renaissance around a millennium later. As religious figures changed the perspectives of European society, artistic values began to shift through time.
According to Art History, a website that specializes in the historical value of art, in the Middle Ages, art evolves as humans continue to address the traditional and the new, including biblical subjects, Christian dogma, and classical mythology. This was an extremely significant time for religious leaders to project their power and authority among their subjects by publishing paintings that symbolized their faith and ultimately their overall religious dominance within European society.
Moving forward, unlike subtle impressionistic art brought about during the late 19th century, a new, fun type of art sprouted in the late 1950s. Pop art glorified the most mundane aspects of American culture, and they still called it art.
This all started with artists Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, James Rosenquist, and Claes Oldenburg, who focused far from the traditional artistic themes of morality, mythology, and classic history. These revolutionary artists focused mainly on everyday people and commonplace objects, ultimately contributing to the incorporation of commercial images and became the most recognizable mediums of modern art.
This, however, exposes a very real problem with the art industry today. Art itself is a commodity. Simply stated, art is no longer beautiful. It is profitable.
Looking at modern day, the values that defined art centuries ago have seemed to completely vanish from the industry. Using art as a gateway to represent one's values, beliefs, and passions has almost become a historic pastime, because simply today, art is used as a tool to make money. David Turnick, who specializes in old master prints and drawings, has stated that the art market has become so monetized, people have become to think of art as a legitimate form of investment. And the New York dealer Richard L. Fain has observed that works of art have become financial instruments due to changes in the art market, which has itself become more of a financial market.
Now, this evolution of the art industry into primarily what we would call a market today has clear long-term effects. Thousands of years ago, art was one of the most common forms of expression within modern society. As years have passed by, the commoditization of art has depreciated these values. Although some artists still use art as a powerful tool in which they express their beliefs, the majority of the industry has been taken over by business, therefore making this an issue within society today.
Historically, painters and curators have been placed with the burden of upholding their own positive image while at the same time maintaining a profit. Therefore, when presented with a problem of mass production, it's important to remember that even Renaissance painters strongly relied on assistants and students. And when demands grew, these students quickly moved up from preparing oil and paint to actually working on becoming indispensable parts of the art-making process.
Take Peter Paul Rubens, for example, who had a flock of assistants working in his amateur studio, with 2 paintings a week leaving his busy factory on average. He is currently credited with more than 1,500 paintings. In many overs, only finishing touches and signature were drawn by his own hand. It was his assistants who did all the major work, copying from oil sketches which Rubens had prepared.
William Kenton expands on this idea in detail. Essentially, the way that artwork is produced is through mass production. This trend quantifies that precision machining equipment has led to large-scale demands for mass-produced artwork created at low costs with a small workforce.
The foundation of all business and profitability, and that includes fields of more fine arts. This works for virtually all forms of business because mass production, if stringently monitored, typically results in high-accuracy assembly line machines that have fixed parameters. Labor costs are often lower for mass-produced products, and assembly line production and automated processes themselves require fewer workers.
On the surface, this seems like a net positive since the capitalistic system we're a part of prevails with higher revenue. However, since artists themselves are not valuing the art for what it truly is, they aren't in the same category as the visionaries of earlier times.
The trend that we could expect in the future is the removal of credibility from the visionaries of our time. Not only does this lack of value remain present to the populace or society, but the artists themselves expose their own ulterior motives of working simply for profit.
While talking about the concept of pure art, it has some set words that define it ideally. It is pure, free, valuable, and liberal too, all at the same time. The arguments made by fine artists are more about true art and its depiction. Whether it's Eastern or Western vibrant art, it is always aimed to make the correction, not just for the enlightenment of the public.
Robert Bresson once said, "It is in its pure form that art hits hard."
By perceptively revaluing and changing the way that we view artwork today to valuing the importance of beauty over currency, we eliminate the possibility that monetization can corrupt an entire industry.
This is seen through graffiti. Now, graffiti is a form of art that is not valued for profit, but rather for its beauty. Ruin Smith, the founder of Pixel Smith Studios, explains that graffiti is an art form where people can express their feelings or thoughts and are able to leave a long-lasting impression on a city. Graffiti can also be seen as a form of vandalism. However, in the context of the art trying to promote social change, it becomes more socially acceptable.
However, the issue with our solution lies not in ethics, but instead pragmatism.
When you buy something from an artist, you're buying more than just an object. You're buying hundreds of hours of errors and experimentation. You're buying years of frustration and moments of pure joy. You're not just buying one thing. You're buying a piece of a heart, a piece of a soul, a small piece of someone else's life.
Art business consultant Maria Brophy says it best. Art is a contribution to society. It brings joy, it solves problems, and it makes this world a better place. Being paid allows these artists to make the contribution in the first place.
However, this doesn't account for the complete absence of moral obligation by a booming industry who no longer values the beauty of the art world. By ensuring that art is not done through the lens or class of mass production, we provide the possibility that the incentive remains.
Additionally, the limitations provided still don't provide the necessary response to the moral obligations that we have against the ideological monopoly that is the art industry. Our solution provides an escape of a world defined by value based on currency and an entrance into one of beauty and purity.
While our society continues to contribute to the artistic world with work that is done out of desire for money, we refuse to take the necessary stance to bring back the beauty that we saw during the European Renaissance.
That is the beauty of art itself. Thank you.
Excuse me. Victoria, In the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
So I think the biggest change that we would make to our group norms is actually establishing our schedules way ahead of time. What we found when we were trying to collaborate on this project was that things were constantly coming up that would avoid us from actually working on it. So if we were to actually come up with our schedules beforehand, we would be able to eliminate this problem and thus give you guys a better presentation today.
Ashley, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Caden's findings.
My thinking changed as a result of learning about Caden's findings because Caden focused essentially on the economic lens of this issue. He focused on how art is becoming mass-produced, and that is the only and most efficient way in which we can produce art. My thinking changed because I focused mainly on the history of art, and I realized that this was actually a very big problem in our society today.
Neza, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
So as a result of group discussion, at first we wanted to talk about the overall history of art. However, of the history of the art industry itself. However, this didn't really pose an ongoing problem as we dove deeper in group discussion and we thought about the different things that would come with art itself. So we dove deeper and we thought about the different lenses, and we wanted to talk about an ongoing problem, which is the monetization of art and how the values of art depreciated. So as a result of group discussion, we started off with the history of art, and then we wanted to dive deeper into an ongoing problem in our society today.
And Caden, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
I would say that Victoria's argumentation that she used inside of her report provided a different point of view that I hadn't quite seen before. The analysis that I did was mostly on the economic lens and the problems inside of the art industry. However, she focused on what we should be seeing in the status quo by focusing on what art truly means and what it means to be beautiful. So as a result of Victoria's analysis, we were able to come to our solution that we provided to you today of beauty and purity.
All right. Hold on.